Drake lost it in public, the footage went viral, and now everyone in OVO is scrambling. The real story? It's even crazier than you think. Now listen, before we go any further into this, before we start seeing everyone scramble to either defend or expose him, make sure to leave a like. Seriously, hit that like button and help us out. Because with what we're about to uncover and show you, things are about to get much worse than what we've already seen from Drake's Ultra, Karen Meltdown. If you're ready to see how a video of Drake freaking out after starting a scuffle in a club has gone completely viral, and how it shows just how much of a crybaby, wannabe victim he's become, then you're in the right place. We found out what the real fight was about, who it involved, who took his section that sparked the finger-pointing meltdown, and everything else surrounding the situation. It's all led to Drake's team scrambling to clean things up and hide the truth from coming out. So before we dive deeper, make sure to like and subscribe, because they definitely don't want people to know what's really happening here. Now, I'll be honest, I don't like how the situation is unfolding. And not just because of Drake's Kara moment, the finger-pointing, and all the other cringeworthy things we've seen. That's the funny part. The stuff everyone laughs at and talks about. What actually bothers me is the PR spin coming from Drake's camp. They're trying to rewrite the story, tone it down, and dismiss it as nothing more than a prank. According to them, Drake's meltdown and his freakout were all just a joke. But I'm here to tell you it wasn't a prank, and I'm going to expose everything we've learned about what really happened. So once again, before we move forward, make sure to leave a like, because the truth is being buried, and it's up to us to bring it out. Now, let's talk about what's actually been happening. There's been a ton of discussion about every detail surrounding this incident with Drake. The first major point is the lead up to Drake being kicked out of the club, apparently over losing his VIP section. That's what led to him blowing up on the bouncer, trying to take on everyone, and doing the classic hold me back routine. Of course, we all knew Drake wasn't actually going to do anything. But here's where it gets interesting. Reports suggest that the altercation happened in December 2023. That clears up a lot of the confusion about the timeline. Now, a bunch of people have been throwing their names into the mix, claiming they were involved or witnessed it. But social media seems convinced that one particular person was the cause of the fight. And if this is really the guy Drake lost his cool over, it just makes the entire situation even funnier. Beyond all the speculation and noise, it's clear that things are getting weird. What makes it even more telling is how desperate everyone in OVO seems to be, scrambling for excuses and damage control as this story keeps growing bigger by the day. And here's where things start to get interesting. The way Drake's team tried to spin this story. Well, that's where all the information starts coming together. They had the owner of the club, the Shisha Lounge in Turks and Caicos, call in and explain the situation directly to Angela Yee B.Dot on their show. He shared everything he supposedly knew about the altercation that took place there in 2023. Now, listen, this is where media literacy really matters. You have to pay attention to how people speak and the patterns in what they say. Because the moment you listen to this interview, as Kendrick Lamar would say, it smells like somebody's lying. The way they try to justify Drake's full-on meltdown and brush it off as just a joke is honestly laughable. The club owner repeats over and over again that it was just a prank. I'll play you a short clip later, but here's one of his quotes. "I think it was a prank, because this is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in your life once you get to know him." Then he adds, "But he does have a funny side." Now, throughout the 2.5-minute conversation with Angela Yee B.Dot, there was one particular line that really stood out, and it honestly sounded like a slip-up or even an unintentional admission that we're being fed a lie. He says again, "It was a prank. Drake is one of the nicest guys once you get to know him, but he does have a funny side." The wording alone is awkward, clunky even, and when you listen closely to how he says it, that funny side doesn't sound funny at all. There's a tone there, a kind of nervous phrasing, that makes it sound like he's hinting at something darker about Drake's behavior. Overall, this whole explanation feels like blatant damage control. The owner keeps insisting there's nothing to the story, claiming it was Drake's first time visiting Turks and Caicos, and that he's now an ambassador for place, which honestly sounds like some Hall of Fame level coping and caping. But here's where that story completely falls apart. This altercation supposedly happened in December 2023. Yet if you go back and listen to Lil Yachty's podcast, the one he did with his friend Mitch, during the episode where they interviewed J. Cole, Yachty specifically said that he and Drake were working on her loss in Turks and Caicos. Now, her loss didn't come out in 2023. It dropped in 2022. You can quote me on that and go back to that very podcast, the one Yachty later deleted after his own controversy, and hear him say it himself. So if Drake was already in Turks and Caicos in 2022, how could this be his first time there in 2023? Like the club owner claims? The timeline doesn't add up. It just sounds like this guy is bending over backward to defend Drake, repeating the same, it was just a prank line and painting him as some great guy, when it's clear there's a lot more going on beneath the surface. Meanwhile, everything we've seen so far completely contradicts the story Drake's camp is pushing. Nothing about the prank narrative or the supposed misunderstanding lines up with what's actually visible in the video. Honestly, it's clear that we're being lied to, and whoever in OVO tried to suppress this clearly didn't think things through. Because let's be real, anyone who gives a situation even a moment of critical thought can see exactly what's happening. Drake is covering something up, and this club owner is helping him do it. Now, within that same 2.5-minute interview, a few other things stood out, and they were pretty strange. Not only did the club owner claim to be the ambassador of Turks and Caicos, which already sounds exaggerated, but he also said Drake had a misunderstanding at the club. Then, in the same breath, he called the whole incident a prank. That alone doesn't make sense. Those are two completely different explanations. Was it a misunderstanding or a prank? And come on, we've all seen Drake in different settings, on and off the mic. This isn't our first time watching how he reacts publicly. We know when he's acting, and this wasn't acting. This wasn't a joke. This was Drake's ego getting the best of him. Try to act tough to intimidate anyone he thought disrespected him. You can't spin that away, especially when you see that now infamous Karen fingerpoint moment. That's pure anger, not humor. So, putting everything together, here's what we've got. A viral video of Drake having a complete meltdown and seemingly getting kicked out of the club in Turks and Caicos. Then, the club owner goes on one of the biggest hip-hop media platforms, Angela Yee's show, and delivers this overly polished story filled with contradictions. On one hand, he says Drake misunderstood something. On the other, he insists it was all a prank. None of it adds up, and that's where things get even more interesting. It seems like the OVO camp genuinely believed people would just accept this PR spin, that fans and the general public wouldn't question it. But the problem is, the footage exists. We've all seen it. Why? Why go to such lengths to rewrite something that's already on video for everyone to see? And what are they really trying to hide? But why? Why wouldn't they just tell us the real story if it was something small, a harmless misunderstanding or a minor mistake that got blown out of proportion? Why, instead, will we see the club owner go on one of the biggest hip-hop shows out there and try to spin a story filled with contradictions? First calling it a misunderstanding, then insisting it was a prank? The inconsistencies are impossible to ignore. Even the way he describes Drake doesn't sound genuine. He calls him a great guy and then adds that he has a funny side. But the way he says it, the tone, the hesitancy, it sounds less like funny and more like frightening. What does that even mean? At this point, it's hard to deny that we're being played. It feels like they're trying to manipulate the narrative right in front of us, expecting us not to notice. But the thing is, we do notice. The truth is visible, and it's obvious that something is happening behind the scenes that they don't want the public to know about. Now, of course, we could speculate endlessly about what's really going on, dig into theories, follow rabbit holes, and try to connect it to Drake's outburst. But honestly, we don't even need to. The fact that they're working so hard to hide the real story already says more than enough. And this brings me to something that's been stuck in my mind. Kendrick Lamar's diss track, Meet the Grahams. Kendrick makes pointed references to Drake's time in Turks and Caicos and hints at what he might be doing there. It's interesting to think about those lyrics in the context of this video. Drake completely losing his composure, unfiltered, raw, and nothing like the calm, collected image he tries to maintain publicly. Now, I'm not saying this meltdown directly connects to anything Kendrick mentioned, or to the rumors people like Vlad or academics have thrown around about Drake's behind-the-scenes activities. But what I am saying is that this moment feels revealing. It's a glimpse behind the curtain. A look at the real Aubrey Graham when the Drake persona drops. The way he acted in that club, the anger, the defensiveness, that's not an act. That's him. And maybe that's why the people around him are scrambling so hard to bury this story. Because what we saw in that video isn't just a celebrity having a bad night. It's a rare, unfiltered look at who Drake might really be when the cameras aren't on. Even the club owner's strange tone, the nervous way he calls Drake the ambassador of Turks and Caicos, and praises him like he's afraid not to. It all feels off, almost rehearsed, almost like he's scared to say anything that might cross Drake. And that's what makes this whole situation so unsettling. It really does seem like Drake has established a kind of control over the nightlife in Turks and Caicos, almost as if he's running things their way that ensures no one will speak out against him or dare to challenge him. The entitlement in his behavior says it all. While we've seen him humbled in other situations, this level of meltdown, this full-on Karen crash-out, is something different entirely. It feels like we're seeing a man who's gotten far too comfortable, someone who believes he's above everyone else, and above the rules. This particular incident seems like an early moment in that pattern, where he didn't get his way and simply couldn't handle it. What we're witnessing here is a result of that unchecked ego. But even more than that, the fact that Drake felt comfortable enough to lose control like this in public, that's revealing. It exposes something deeper, something that feels off. I'm not going to jump to conclusions, because we don't have enough concrete information yet, but something about this entire situation just doesn't sit right. There's a strange undercurrent here, one that feels too calculated to ignore. So here's what I want you to keep in mind. Remember everything you've seen and everything we've discussed. Remember that phone call from the club owner, the one that so clearly sounded like a desperate attempt to cover for Drake. Normal people don't talk that way when they're telling the truth. You don't praise someone as a great guy while making obvious contradictions that suggest the opposite. Whenever you hear stories about Drake, someone who has spent his entire career tightly controlling his image and surrounding himself with people who protect that image, remember that everything isn't always as it seems. This situation feels staged, rehearsed, and manipulated. And if more footage or information about this incident ever surfaces, things could get a lot worse. Not just for Drake, but for his reputation in Turks and Caicos as a whole. If that happens, some of those Kendrick Lamar lines from Meet the Grahams might start sounding more real than ever. And if that's the case, Drake's got far bigger problems than a viral Karen finger-point moment. Problems that could completely shatter the carefully crafted image he's been holding onto for years. So yeah, that's where things stand for now. I'll be honest, the whole situation is just weird. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe Drake is covering this up? And if so, why would he go to such lengths to hide it? If you made it this far, thank you. I really appreciate it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps out a ton. I hope you have a great day and an even better week. And if you want to keep going, check out the suggested video. It breaks down another moment where Drake's actions left his fans furious. The optics on that one are just as bad, if not worse. Things are catching up to him fast. And trust me, you won't want to miss it.